out here. Let's dance. Let's dance.
Hello magical hands, welcome to the channel. If it's your first time here, thank you for joining this family, and if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for coming back. For today's tutorial, as you can already tell from the thumbnail, we'll be making this beautiful bubu dress with the basket yoke. And if this is something you want to learn, make sure to keep on watching. Don't forget to like, don't forget to share, and don't forget to subscribe. And without any further ado, let's get into this video proper. So this is all I'll be needing to make this dress. For my main fabric, I have a yard and 20 something inches, close to 2 yards but not up to 2 yards. I will need my pattern paper, and I will need a plain fabric that matches with at least the base of the main fabric, and I'll be using red. This fabric that I'm using is a very light cotton fabric, and you can see how transparent it is. It just have some body designs on it, but this is a very light cotton fabric, so you can use any plain fabric of your choice. And I also need my all-purpose ruler. I will need my tape, my measuring tape, some writing material, and my scissors. And lastly, we'll also need a marker. As we already know, my fabric is very small and I just opened it up. So this part you are seeing is where the yards are usually measured. So I'm going to close it up as seen. I'm going to fold from the longest side, which is where the yards are measured. And that way I'll have something looking like this. So this way my fabric is already folded into two, and then I want to be able to cut both the front and back piece at once. So I will pick from that other end and place as seen, and this way I have my fabric folded in four, so that way I am working on both the front and the back piece at once. So I'm just going to flip this over so that the folded side of the fabric is facing you guys, so that you guys will understand what I'm doing clearly. The first thing I'll mark is the width of the neckline. So from that folded side, I'm going to mark the wideness of the neckline, which I mark 3.5 inches. That is going to be the width of the neckline for both the front and the back piece. Now I'll mark the depth, and I use 3.5 inches for the depth as well. So I'll just go ahead with my curve ruler and connect that as seen. Now this measurement that I took is going to be for the front piece. Like I said, I'll be cutting both the front and back piece at once. So I'm still going to maintain this neck width for the back piece, but the depth of the neckline of the back piece will have to be smaller than that of the front piece. So I'll just go ahead and I'll mark 1.5 inch again. That is going to be the neckline of the back piece, and I'll just connect it to meet the already marked neck width. So first of all, I'll cut out the back neckline first of all. After I cut out the back neckline, I'm going to just open this up as seen. I'm going to pull out one of the folded fabric, okay? We are going to assume that that is going to be the back piece. So the other side of this, I'm going to now go ahead and recut the neckline, okay? So the part that I removed aside is the back piece, and this side that I'm going to recut to the 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches is going to be the front piece. And then now I'm going to fold it back again. Just take your time and arrange everything, and you can see that the neckline is already drawn perfectly. You can see that the front neckline is deeper than that of the back neckline. So just take your time and make sure you arrange this neatly. So now I'm going to apply my shoulder to shoulder measurement divided by 2, which is 7.5 inches. But I don't want this to start, I don't want the basket of the yoke to start from my shoulder. I want it to come down a bit. So after that shoulder measurement, I mark 3 inches. So you can decide to use 2 inches or 4 inches, but I just want this to come down a bit. I don't want this to just be on my shoulder. So I mark 3 inches after my shoulder measurement, and then for where the yoke will stop, I marked 7 inches, and I'll have to connect the 7 inches to meet that part that we marked on the top part, just as seen. I'm going to use the curved side of my ruler to give this a bit of curve, and this is what it's supposed to look like. I also went in again to define this curve a little bit. This is totally optional. Now that we are done with the top part, I'm going to start marking the lower bodies. I just went ahead with my free hand, and I'm going to curve exactly as seen. Just go ahead with your free hand. I did not use any measurements or anything. I just tried as much as possible to make sure that this has a very clean curve going around there. And now I will go ahead and start cutting out the part that will not be needed. And while you're cutting out the parts that is not needed, make sure to leave allowance. As I'm cutting the yoke, I also make sure to leave like half an inch allowance, so I don't cut exactly on the chalked line. Now I'll keep this part aside and I'll move over to the yoke. So this part, I'll bring out my pattern paper and then I'll open up the yoke of the blouse on the pattern paper as seen. And then I'll take my time to trace out the whole outlines of this yoke on the pattern paper. Make sure to place something on the fabric so that it doesn't move, and take your time to trace out this whole yoke on the pattern paper. Now this is what I have. You would see I'm going to now mark around the folded side, okay, so that I know how to fold this properly. This is what the whole yoke looks like on my pattern paper. I just marked inwards that part so I know the folded side. From that side to the left is going to be the back, and from that side to the right is going to be the front. So I'll take my time and start cutting this trace out. While I'm cutting it out, I will also make sure to add half an inch allowance around it, because that's going to be my sewing allowance. This is very important. Now we indicate what each part stands for. We have the front and then we have the back. I'll fold this again into 4 so that I can be able to find the midpoint of both the front and the back piece. I gave this a really good press, and by the time I open this up, you'll see that the folded lines are very visible. So I'm going to make a very straight line across that point. Just want to be sure of my midpoint, and then I can go ahead and start marking the basket lines. And I'm going to use 2 inches by 2 inches for my basket line. So just go ahead and mark 2 inches in a vertical form, and then you go ahead and mark 2 inches in a horizontal line. Just mark this all through as seen. And then this is what it looks like. So we are going to go ahead and sew on these lines. So if you have a bias tape, you can go ahead and use a bias, but I'm going to be using this plain fabric that I showed you guys from the start. I'm going to cut at least 2 inches wide. This is how I'll be cutting it. By the time I cut from the top part, I will use my hand and tear this down. This will go down very straight. Now fold in half an inch from one side and fold in half an inch on the other side, and then I close it again. Like I said, this fabric is very light, so on those lines I'm going to start sewing on it. You can do either one straight stitch or you can do 2 straight stitches. And this is just a closer view of what it looks like on my sewing machine while I am sewing. So I actually sewed twice. I sewed on the left side and on the right side because I was not okay with sewing just one straight stitch. I just want this to be really firm. And this is what it looks like after I sewed on every single lines. You guys, this paper was tearing while I was sewing, and I went ahead with my sellotape to hold this down. Just in case yours is tearing, make sure to use the sellotape to hold this down. So now I'm going to take another piece of this and I'm going to sew along the neckline to finish off the seams of the neckline. Now this is a close view of how I am joining it. Okay, this method actually took me some time. If you feel like using another method, just go ahead. What I did was, after I folded this piece of fabric into 2, I now inserted this paper in between it. Okay, and this is what the finished result looks like. So this you will notice that the back piece, I actually almost did a mistake, but I wouldn't say it's a mistake because you will see that after I folded it, that folded line, I did not sew exactly on that folded line, which I was supposed to sew on the folded line. I actually shifted it a bit, which is not a bad thing because we are going to be splitting this into 2. So I'm still going to sew another one close to it by the side, which is going to be like the hem of the back piece because we are going to split this into 2. So we'll go over to the fabric and I'll show you guys how far we've gone so far. I'm going to, since remember this fabric is folded in 4, as it is like this. So we'll just fold the yoke back into 4 and I'll place it as you guys can see how it fits perfectly. So we are going to sew this back to the main dress. So after sewing up that part that I mentioned I'll be sewing, I'm going to go ahead and join this first of all to the dress before I will cut it out, okay? It's very important for us to join it to the dress first before we cut it out. So I'm going to open this up so we will have that space just to show you guys clearly how I'll be attaching this. This is exactly how you will fix it and you'll see that everything aligns properly. But you know the way we folded this fabric into 4 before cutting it out, this fabric is going to still be bigger than the yoke. Even though it looks perfect right now, it's still going to be bigger, and I believe it's because of the way we cut it out, because it's like the way you will cut out your peplum, it already has this flay thing around it. I don't know if you understand. So I'll just take this to my sewing machine and sew it quickly and be back. And after sewing it, this is what it looks like. This is the space I told you guys was remaining, but it doesn't matter because I made sure that the space remained at the back, okay? I started sewing from the front to the back so that all the space that will remain will be at the back, because like I said, I'll be splitting the yoke open at the back. Now you will go ahead and start removing all these papers. Trust me, this is the part of this whole dress that takes a lot of your time. And after removing the paper, this is what it looks like. You can go ahead and top stitch around the parts that we join the yoke to the main dress. Now we want to start arranging this plain fabric on this. So you can cut this according to the volume of fabric you have. If you have enough, make sure to pleat this very full. And for the length, I didn't really use a measurement. I was just doing try and error with the length. I didn't use any measurements, but I pleated this very well. I had a lot of this red fabric, so I was ready to not manage fabrics at all. So this depends on you, depends on the quantity of fabric you have. So this is how you are just going to go ahead and pleat this all around the base of this dress. Now this is what the full view of everything is like. This looks so beautiful. I am already in love with the result that I'm getting. So the midpoint of this fabric is very visible. Just what I did was to just go ahead with my chalk and to define it in order for us to shape this dress. Now on both the sides, you are going to mark from your shoulder to your bust point, okay? That's where you're going to start shaping this dress from. Just draw a horizontal line at that point, and right on that point you are going to mark your round bust measurement divided by 4. So let's say your round bust measurement divided by 4 is 9 inches. You are going to mark 9 and then you're going to add quarter of an inch, okay? You're going to add quarter of an inch for ease so that when you wear it, it's not tight. Next, you're going to mark from your shoulder to your half length, okay? Your waist area, and you're going to mark your round waist measurement divided by 4. Mine is 8 inches, but I added quarter of an inch so that there is a bit of ease. And make sure to do the same thing to the other side as well. So from the waistline, what I did first of all was to mark my exact hip measurement, but I noticed that it will not come out, so I have to just slant this out without any measurement from the waistline. Just slant this outside because it's supposed to be very free at the lower side. Only your waist and maybe your bust is supposed to have a bit of fitting, but from the waist down, slant it outside. So you just go ahead and sew on these chalked lines as seen. And at this point, I also reduced the red extra flay that we added on the base. I noticed that it was too long and it wasn't giving the fitting that it would have, the picture was giving. It wasn't looking like the picture. So in order to make sure that this dress was looking like the picture inspiration, I had to go ahead to reduce this flay. I really love how the flay came out because I used enough fabric. So this brings us to the end of this tutorial, guys. If you learned something new, make sure to give us a thumbs up, make sure to subscribe, make sure to share, and see you guys in my next tutorial. Bye. And for the back, for that opening at the back, I'm going to fix a button at one side and I'm going to create like a loop at the other side so I can join it at the neck side.
Get off here!